Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, we are from group 9. We will present the material about making a good test. Before we start our presentation today, I would like to introduce our group. My name is Melinda, and next Muhammad Wairuddin and Lani Zahra Nabila. For the first material will deliver by me, by myself. And what is a good test in education? It is an evaluation through which teachers measure learners' abilities and points of weakness and strength. It gauges their knowledge in the field of study and provides both sides with real feedback. And the next, how to make sure your test is reliable. The first is take enough samples of behavior. And the next is exclude items which do not discriminate well between weaker and stronger students. Do not allow candidates too much freedom. And the fourth is write unambiguous items. And the fifth is provide clear and explicit instruction. I will explain from the first, that is the take enough samples of behavior. Other things being equal, the more items that you have on a test, the more reliable that test will be. This seems intuitively right. If we want to know how good an archer someone was, we wouldn't really rely on the evidence of a single shot at the target. That one shot could be quite unrepresentative of their ability. Each additional item should, as far as possible, represent a fresh start from the candidate. By doing this, we are able to gain additional information on all of candidates' information that will make test results more reliable. They use only brief questions and answers. In a test of writing, for example, where candidates have to produce a number of passages, each of those passages is to be regarded as an item. The more independent passage there are, the more reliable will be the test. In the same way, an interview used to test oral ability, the candidate should be given as many fresh starts as possible. More detailed implications of the need to obtain sufficiently large samples of behavior will be outlined later in the book. And the next is exclude items which do not discriminate well between weaker and stronger students. It means that items on which strong students and weak students perform with similar degrees of success contribute little to reliability of a test. Statistical analysis of items will reveal which items do not discriminate well. There are likely to include items which are too easy or too difficult for the candidates, but not only such item. A small number of easy, non-discriminating items may be kept at the beginning to test, give candidates confidence, and reduce the stress they feel. I'm sorry, in bahasa mungkin tidak membedakan tes itu untuk yang orang yang memang lemah dan memang yang kuat. Jadi Gak ada soal yang gampang buat yang kurang mengerti atau soal yang lebih sulit untuk yang sudah mengerti. Jadi tidak membedakannya. And the next is do not allow candidates too much freedom. In some kinds of language tests, there is a tendency to offer candidates as a choice of question, then allow them a great deal of freedom in the way that they answer the ones that they have chosen. An example would be a test of writing, where the candidates are simply give a selection of titles from which to choose, such as procedure is likely to have a depressing effect on the reliability of tests. The more freedom that is given, the greater is likely to be difference between the performance actually elicited. The performance that would have been elicited had the test been taken, say. And the next is write unambiguous items. It's essential that the candidates shouldn't be present with items whose meaning is not clear or to which there is an acceptable answer which the test writer has not anticipated. In reading tests, I once set the following open-ended question based on the length reading passage about English accent and dialects. Where does the author direct the reader who is interested is not standard dialect of English? The best way to arrive at ambiguous items is having draft them to subject them to the critical scrutiny of college, who should try as hard as they can find alternative interpretation to the ones intended. And the next is provide clear and explicit instruction. This applies both to written and oral instruction. If it is possible to candidates to misinterpret what are they asked to do, then on some occasions, some of them certainly will. It is by means always the weakest candidates who are missed by ambiguous instruction. Indeed, it is often to a better candidate who is able to provide the alternative interpretation. A common fault of a test written for the students of a particular teaching institution is the suspicion that the student all know what is intended by carelessly worded instruction. And I think enough from me. That's all from me. Thank you. And we would like to the next material that will be delivered by
Okay, the next material, that explained by me. So here there is 6 answers that tests are well laid out and perfectly legible. Too often institute tests are badly typed or handwritten, have too much text into small space and are poorly reproduced. As a result, students are faced with additional tasks which are not ones meant to measure their language ability. And then 7, that make candidates familiar with format and testing technique. If any aspect of a test is unfamiliar to candidates, they are likely to perform less well than they would do otherwise. So for this reason, every effort must be made to ensure that all candidates have the opportunity to learn just what will be required of them, and then eight, provide uniform and non-distressing condition of administration. The greater the differences between one administration of a test and another, the greater the differences one can expect between candidates' performance on the two occasions. And then we turn now to ways of obtaining score. Reliability, which, as we saw above, is essential to test reliability. And then the nine, use item that permit scoring which is as objective as possible. This may appear to be a recommendation to use multiple choice items. Multiple choice items, which permit completely objective scoring. This is not intended, while it would be mistake to say that multiple choice items are never appropriate. It is certainly true that there are many circumstances in which they are quite inappropriate. An alternative to multiple choice is the open-ended item, which has a unique possible one-word correct response, and then which the candidate produce themselves. And then the last one, that there is make comparison between candidates as direct as possible. This reinforces the suggestion already made that candidates should not be given a choice of items, and that they should be limited in the way that they are allowed to respond. And then do not allow candidates too much freedom. Yeah, that's material from me. Back to moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lanis. And we will continue to the next material that will be delivered by Muhammad Khairuddin. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Melinda, as the moderator. But before I explain my material, is my voice clear?
Yes.
Okay, so I will explain from the point 11 to the point 15. So the first point is provide a detailed scoring key. This should specify acceptable answer and assign points for acceptable partially correct responses. It means that for high scores reliability, the key should be as detailed as possible in its assignment of points. It should be the outcome to efforts to anticipate our possible responses and have been subjected to group criticism. And for the next point is train scores. This is especially important where scoring is most subjective. It means that the scoring of compositions, for example, should not be assigned to anyone who has not learned to score accurately compositions from past administrations. And after each administrations, patterns of scoring should be analyzed. Individuals whose scoring deviates markedly and inconsistently from this norm should not be used again. And the third point is agree acceptable responses and appropriate scores at outset of scoring. A sample of script should be taken immediately after the administration of the test. So it means that where there are compositions are kept typical, representative of the different levels of ability should be selected. Only when all scores are agreed on the scores to be given to this should real scoring begin, or more will be said, or for short answer question, the scholars should not note any difficulties they have in assigning points and bring this to the attention of whoever is supervising that part to scoring. And the 14th point is identify candidates by number, not name. Scores inevitably have expectations of candidates that they know, except in purely objective testing. So this will affect the way that they score. Studies have shown that even where the candidates are unknown to the scorers, the name on a script or a photograph will make a significant difference for the scores given. For example, score may be influenced by the gender or nationality of a name into making of predictions, which can affect the score that been given from the teacher. The identification of candidates only by number will reduce such effects that I mentioned before. And the last point is employ multiple and independent scoring. As a general rule, and certainly where testing is subjective, all scripts should be scored by at least 2 independent scores. Neither scorer should know how the other has scored a test paper. Or scores should be recorded on separate score sheets and passed to a third senior college who compares of the two sets of scores and investigates these responses. I think that's from me. Thank you. I give it back to Melinda.
Okay, that's all the material from us. And thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.